Hey guys, what's going on? Hope you're doing well. I wanted to take some time to talk about the 1 year anniversary of the Series X that I have, and then there's the Series S. I can't speak to that, I don't have a Series S, but the people that don't really care about the shiny stuff, the graphics that much, that have the Series S seem to be pretty happy with it. So I would go to somebody like John Riggs or somebody that's done a video on the Series S and a little bit more than that, but it just kind of passed me by. I was in the middle of editing a video and completely missed it. It was the 1 year. Now I didn't get mine until about 2 weeks later, and I just got it by happenstance. I was grocery shopping. I was going through the certain section of Walmart past the electronics, and I noticed that they had a guy stocking the shelves, and he was pulling out boxes of Series X's and getting ready to put them in the case, and I was like, can I have one? And he was like, yeah, you can have one. I'm like, cool, yeah, I'll take that right now. It's not like I didn't have an Xbox before. I had a One X, and it was a sweet deal. It was about a year earlier, and I got a One X for like something stupid, like $300, and it was the Gears of War one that came with like every single Gears of War game. And so I picked that up, and I was very happy with it because right around that time is like when Game Pass was like first launching. And so they gave me like 3 months, and then I just got like Game Pass for like a year after that. And I gotta tell you, like, even on like the One X, I could see like the potential there. Like some of the games were kind of like, and then you had all the Xbox like first party stuff, and then you had like, some okay games. But it's gotten to the point now where like the library has grown substantially. Like pretty much every game on there is fairly good, whether you like your indies or you like, like your big box kind of games. And then in the last year, them buying like Bethesda and having like a lot of Bethesda games being in there has just put it over this like tier for me. It's just like, it's completely worth it. Now I'm a $15 subscriber because I don't have already existing Xbox Live, and it comes with that. And I can like stream off the PC or stream it, or I can play it off the PC and then stream it as well. But I feel like Game Pass and a little bit of like the extra experiences that you're getting with this thing is really the overall selling feature up. And I don't really subscribe to this idea that because Microsoft puts their Xbox games on PC that all of a sudden that there's some kind of like, problem with like getting more people on the Xbox. That's not really how that works. It's at the end of the day, it's a game sale or a subscription to Xbox Game Pass to them, and they're still making money. And if people, I don't know when people forgot, but Windows is a Microsoft product, just like the Xbox is. So it's there, you always make your money on the sale of the games and not so much the hardware. The hardware is just a preference of where you want to go. And I can totally see in the future there being this third tier that kind of pops up where people are like, I don't even want a PC or that. I just want to stream it off of an app on my TV. And they're certainly moving in that direction. Now, as good a deal as Game Pass is, great deal, right? It does in a way kind of scare me a little bit because ultimately it's not any different in some ways in my mind as to when I was a kid and I had, my mom would go get like a rental game or something for my Nintendo. If you really look at like what's going on here, it feels like it's maybe a step towards taking more and more control of idea of ownership away of games from you, the consumer. And that's something I really kind of advocate against. I don't like the idea of that whatsoever. But when the physical device is completely out of the picture and it's just video that you're streaming, you literally have no control at that point. Like, you have nothing to hold on to, whether digital, physical, nothing to help preserve that game. And a lot of people talk about games preservation, and I think it's important, but what about the preservation of the games and purchases you made yourself? But I'm willing to admit that, yeah, it's a convenience that there is, not let alone just for your phones and stuff, but coming up pretty soon, games that are Xbox Series X only, people that decide to stick with their Xbox Ones, they're going to be able to stream those games directly to their system without having to upgrade, let alone that this is a great idea because if you're somebody that's like not willing to go out there and pay a lot of money over MSRP or go hunting for these devices like crazy or whatever, it keeps you still being able to play these games in the Game Pass ecosystem, but not having to worry about to upgrade your stuff like right away. And that kind of solves the problem of like not being able to get systems in the store and stuff like that. And that's really where I have to praise Microsoft for them being the most proactive in listening to what their audience wants, and even more so than anybody else, like Nintendo, Sony, whatever. They're just kind of beating to their own drum, and the only time they kind of change course is when there's like an overwhelming outcry. And that did happen with the whole try to increase the Xbox Live cost. And then a day later, they changed it and went back to what it was. And they should never tried to pull that off. It was obvious what they were trying to do. They were trying to push current live subscribers over to Game Pass. And I think the best way they should have handled that was just admit that there's no way to get people to go over to Game Pass without losing some money. Sometimes you gotta, lose money to make money, is the saying, right? And they should just, still should to this day, just get rid of Xbox Live Gold, make it free, and offer Game Pass, and make more and more incentives as to why people should go over to Game Pass. And let's talk about some of the extra features of the Xbox besides the Game Pass stuff, but I think that's pretty much like the reason to have one is overall, I like a lot of the things that they're doing with backwards compatibility. The ability to, like, a lot of those games, like right now, like one of the ones I'm really enjoying is Wolfenstein 2, Xbox One game originally, and it has auto HDR, and it looks so good. But the other thing they added was FPS boost, and this is the benefit of having games run on the DirectX layer as opposed to, because it's kind of like PC, even though they're consoles. Because they're running on DirectX, it's kind of hardware agnostic, and this is really the benefit of the Xbox and the strength. And part of the reason they're able to do this is because even though the game says, hey, I run at 30 FPS, don't run any higher than that, they can insert code into the DirectX layer that says, I'm going to ignore that because I know you're running on better hardware, so we're going to bump it up to 60. And it just adds this extra layer, this awesomeness to your games, like playing anything from Splinter Cell to Assassin's Creed or whatever, with like extra shadows added in and stuff. And if there's anything I have to really kind of fault Phil Spencer for here, is just the fact that games have kind of like, they're just now starting to roll out for the system. It was kind of like lackluster for the last year. And he made some good moves during the one generation, and things are usually pretty slow to roll out. But the moves he's been making in the last couple of years, like buying Bethesda and stuff, are really starting to pay off. And I think we're going to start seeing games roll out at a pretty constant pace, if not like almost an overwhelming pace. And last thing I'm going to address is the design of the box. Now, a lot of people critique this thing for looking like a refrigerator, and I love how Microsoft said, looks like a refrigerator, huh? We should release a refrigerator. It looks like an Xbox. I love that. They're just having fun with it, and that's the best thing overall. Despite it just being basically a rectangle that sits on its top with the fan on the top and everything, I always like the look of it. It's huge, and what blows my mind is that the PlayStation 5 is supposed to be way bigger than it, because I think the thing's massive. I've had a hard time trying to fit it like in my current like entertainment stance, and now it just like sits off to the side on my TV on like a separate table. But the one thing I have to say, like, I thought the Xbox One X was relatively quiet and one of the quieter consoles I ever heard. The only time I really heard fans spin up is like for some reason on the Call of Duty Modern Warfare multiplayer, like getting ready for the multiplayer game. That game would just spin up the fan for no reason. I never really understood that. This thing is so quiet. Now, granted, I've worked in a garage for a couple of years. My ears are pretty much, got pretty shot from that, but I put my head right next to it and I can barely hear the thing running. It's amazing. The only time I've heard it like really run is it does have the option to turn it on the side, and then if like the game's like heating up and stuff, it seems to have a little bit more problem getting airflow through there, so it has to spin up the fan a little bit more, and then you hear like a little bit of a whoosh that way. But otherwise, you got it standing up the way it's supposed to be. You can't hear it. It's stupid quiet. But overall, I've been pretty happy with the Game Pass experience, the Xbox experience, and everything. I think they have a good offer. I never understood the people have been like, oh, I'm not going to do Game Pass. It's just like renting your games. So what? Didn't you rent games when you were a kid? Didn't you do the same thing? So overall, this has saved me a lot of money and allowed me to experience a lot more stuff than I normally would. And despite the rental analogy thing, it does give me this feeling like my Xbox is almost kind of more like a cable box than a game console in a way. I don't think there's really that much of a better deal. I wouldn't pay over MSRP for it. And if you don't have like a top-end 4K TV, if you're still running 1080, if you see the S, that's a perfectly fine, viable option. The memory might be a little bit low on it, but you can play a couple games, get rid of them, download a couple more and stuff. You don't necessarily need to have the X. You guys have any comments? Anything you want to say about the system down below? Have you had it for like the last year? Have you enjoyed it? What do you think about it down below? What's the things you hate about it? Leave me a comment down below, like, subscribes, all that stuff, and see you guys in the next video.